new city can be an exciting and enriching experience, but to really get the most out of your stay and not miss any of the most interesting spots, it's best to be prepared. So we put together a list of 15 bests to explore in some of the greatest cities in the United States to ensure that your trip to each is a truly unforgettable one. Just sit back and let us be your guide, sharing with you 15 travel bests in New York. First-time visitors to New York are often overwhelmed by the city's cultural mosaic. This unique cosmopolitan mix is composed of African Americans, Puerto Ricans, Irish, Chinese, Italians, and many other nationalities from around the world. Each neighborhood has its own special color. The thousands of restaurants in the city offer an incredible range of cultures and flavors. To fully appreciate New York, one must walk its vibrant streets and boulevards, and it helps to have a plan, like our list of 15 travel bests. Get on some comfortable shoes and let's head out into New York City. The island of Manhattan is where we find some of the largest and most beautiful buildings in the entire world. This area buzzes with life and excitement. It's the core of the city's reputation. Let's go soak up some of New York's energy around Times Square. Even if it may seem crowded and loud, Times Square is still a best on any trip to New York. Formerly called Longacre Square, Times Square was renamed in 1904, taking its name from the New York Times newspaper, which had just set up shop nearby. The first billboards appeared in Times Square in 1917. Early on, imaginative advertising agencies vied to attract the attention of the crowds pushing by below. Today, giant display technology has made this visual spectacle nothing short of awe-inspiring. A multitude of screens broadcasting a rainbow of bright colors and eye-catching visuals, along with continuous stock quotes and other breaking news. Like the city, Times Square never sleeps. A late-night visit is a classic New York outing. Since 2010, Times Square has been closed to all vehicles on Broadway between 42nd and 47th Streets. Called the Times Square Pedestrian Plaza, this new walking zone adds to the ambiance of the area, especially in the summer months, when people sometimes even settle in on folding lawn chairs set up in the heart of Times Square to just take in the entertaining frenzy all around them. Looking towards the southwest, you'll see the old Paramount Building, built in 1926 for the film production company of the same name. With its clock tower, the Paramount Building quickly became one of the key symbols of Times Square. Times Square is also famous for the surrounding theater district. Theater lovers are sure to find plenty to entertain them on Broadway or nearby 42nd Street. Several truly mythical theaters are in the area. It was at the Ethel Barrymore that A Streetcar Named Desire, starring Marlon Brando, was first presented back in 1947. The Winter Garden Theater is where the musical drama West Side Story held its world premiere. And with 1,765 seats, the Broadway Theater is one of the largest in the theater district. The Ed Sullivan Theater is actually a large television studio from which the celebrated Late Show with David Letterman has been broadcast live since 1993. A walk through Times Square is an unforgettable sensory experience. Still to come, we have lots more bites from the Big Apple on our list of bests. The Statue of Liberty is one of New York's most famous landmarks, but what does it actually represent? Heading over to the southern tip of Manhattan, from Battery Park, visitors can take the ferry out to Liberty Island and Ellis Island, two islands that hold a key place in American history. In 1693, a battery of 92 guns was installed on this southern tip of Manhattan Island, thereby giving Battery Park its name. Clinton Castle was built in 1812 to defend the port of New York against possible British attack. The castle's courtyard is now used as a ticket sales location for ferries heading out to Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty. From its early days, America welcomed many European victims of ethnic and religious intolerance. During the American War of Independence, the French provided direct support to the founding of the United States, creating bonds of lasting friendship between the two nations. A gift from France, the Statue of Liberty is a symbol of that friendship. The statue was made in France. Sculptor Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi grafted his giant idea onto an iron inner structure designed by celebrated engineer Gustave Eiffel, using over 300 copper plates to form the Great Lady's surface. He officially named his statue Liberty Enlightening the World. Today, visitors can enjoy a walk outside along the base. As for the platform high up in the statue's crown, it was reopened to the public in 2009. Next stop, Ellis Island. The Immigrant Reception Center operated on Ellis Island from 1892 to 1954. The large complex has since been partially transformed into an interpretive center of U.S. immigration history. It was here in the main hall of the registry room that immigrants were first examined by doctors and interviewed by police. Some individuals, including those rejected because of illness, were taken to another part of the island, to this hospital. It's estimated that the ancestors of around 120 million Americans passed through Ellis Island between 1892 and 1954, approximately 40% of the current U.S. population. And this tour allows visitors to better understand the true foundations of the history of the United States. New York's many neighborhoods are steeped in history. The Lower East Side is a fine example. Let's head on over to what was, in the early 20th century, the most densely populated area in the world. Over the last 2 decades of the 19th century, 1,400,000 Jews fled persecution in their native Poland, Romania, and Russia. Astoundingly, nearly half of them settled here in the Lower East Side. The Lower East Side is still the area in New York where newcomers traditionally settle first, before regrouping elsewhere in the city or moving on to disperse across America once they've found their stride. Those who remained longest at this crossroads were the Jews. As such, they're the ones who've left the most traces. The Bialystoker Synagogue is part of that legacy. This beautiful synagogue, a landmark in the neighborhood's cultural landscape, is definitely on our list of bests. It also houses a rich collection of religious works. The Lower East Side was known for its tiny, dark, and often less than lovely apartments. Between 1863 and 1935, this building at 97 Orchard Street was home to nearly 7,000 people from 20 countries. You can visit this authentic slice of grim reality, which leaves lasting impressions. At the turn of the 20th century, apartments like this were often occupied by a dozen people. Winner of numerous awards and commendations, the Memorial Museum offers fascinating tours of restored apartments which once housed immigrant families. The 97 Orchard Street helps us to better understand the daily lives of immigrants in New York in the early part of the 20th century. Coming up, our next best may make you feel like we've actually left New York. What could be more New York than a slice at Lombardi's Pizza, the first pizzeria in the United States, located in legendary Little Italy. Once you reach Mulberry Street, you'll find yourself right in the heart of Little Italy. The soul of immigrants who first built New York by the sweat of their brow still seems to float through this working-class neighborhood. The area's main artery, Mulberry Street, was so named because of the mature mulberry plants that grew in the wild here at the end of the 18th century. This very Little Italy still boasts traditional bakeries and several restaurants with outdoor tables, which draw in commuters from New Jersey on a Saturday night. From the 1920s through the 1970s, the street was also headquarters for the notorious New York Mafia. Several top mobsters were actually gunned down in the area, often after a hearty meal in one of these very restaurants. Ironically, the headquarters of the New York Police Department was also once located in Little Italy, not far from Mulberry Street. Built in 1909 in the English neo-Baroque style, the former NYPD headquarters has since been transformed into luxury apartments. A little further north on Spring Street is the famous Lombardi's Pizza, in business for more than a century now, and still a New York best. Originally a small grocery store opened by Gennaro Lombardi in 1897, the operation became a restaurant in 1905. The restaurant is small, just a few tables with plastic red and white placemats. But the pizza that comes out of the ovens is nothing short of spectacular. It's so popular that we suggest you come between meal times to avoid the crowds. Exploring New York on foot lets a visitor soak up the city's 1,001 exciting contrasts. Let's walk just a little to the south of Little Italy to our next best. The amazing ice cream at the Chinatown Ice Cream Factory is well worth the short walk after our pizza. Over the years, Manhattan's Chinatown has steadily spread into Little Italy and the Lower East Side to the east. One of the largest Chinatowns in the United States, the area is home to Cambodian, Thai, Malaysian, Vietnamese, and Chinese communities, among others. More than 150,000 people live in this diverse and densely populated neighborhood. Displays of exotic fruit along the narrow sidewalks, bustling restaurants and shops featuring Chinese products all make it an exciting destination for tourists and bargain hunters alike. Open nearly 3 decades, the Chinatown Ice Cream Factory at 65 Bayard Street is one of the oldest businesses in the area. Although the origins of ice cream remain uncertain, credit for inventing the treat is often attributed to the Chinese of the Tang Dynasty. The Chinatown Ice Cream Factory is a family business. Among the flavors offered here are lychee, green tea, and azuki bean ice cream. When you visit New York City's Chinatown, be sure to treat yourself to a taste of the best, a cone from the Chinatown Ice Cream Factory. For a quick New York bite, let's head over to La Esquina Corner Deli, located in one of Manhattan's trendiest neighborhoods, Soho. This area was formerly occupied by garment factories, but since the 1970s, the buildings have largely been converted, becoming home to chic art galleries, boutiques, bistros, and furniture design studios. Prince Street, like its sister Spring Street to the south, offers some of the most fashionable shopping in all of New York. Buildings in Soho are often truly unique. Those located on Green Street have facades made of cast iron. Built between 1850 and 1890, these neo-Renaissance buildings had a practical purpose, being constructed from materials that reduced the risk of fire. The interior structure of these buildings, supported by pillars made of the same material, was designed to support heavy machinery that wooden posts simply couldn't support. Soho has the highest concentration of iron-fronted buildings in the world. In the last century, Soho was called Hell's 100 Acres because of the near-inhuman working conditions in its factories. Since it was classified as a landmark district back in 1973 and renamed the considerably more romantic Iron Sector, the area is now among downtown Manhattan's most desirable addresses. As in the rest of Manhattan, there's no shortage of restaurants in Soho, but one that particularly stands out is La Esquina Corner Deli, located on Kenmare Street. La Esquina offers delicious Mexican food, midway between traditional and popular fare. Their burritos, chili, roast chicken, and seafood dishes are the cornerstone of the restaurant's well-deserved reputation. Customers have a choice of 3 places to eat. There's the Taqueria, a small takeout counter, where neighborhood residents often drop in for the fresh tacos. The cafe serves full meals out on the terrace. And a little further on, an exterior door leads to the brasserie and bar. Located in the basement, the decor is reminiscent of a secret club room. Open until 2 a.m., the place boasts a relaxed atmosphere and a fine house DJ. La Esquina is one of the most fashionable places to eat and drink in Manhattan. Next, we'll head over to Midtown Manhattan to visit two architectural gems, the Grand Central Terminal and the New York Public Library. One block from the imposing Chrysler Building is Grand Central Terminal. The same architects who designed Montreal's elegant Ritz-Carlton Hotel, Warren and Wetmore, are the visionaries behind New York's Grand Central. The station, a marvel of the Beaux-Arts style, was designed in 1903. It contains one of the world's best-known public places, here, around the famous four-faced clock. Don't forget to look up and admire the amazing ceiling decorated with the signs of the zodiac, the work of Paul Ellis and Whitney Warren. If some of the 2,500 stars painted there seem to be a little brighter, it's because of recently added fiber optics. While we're in this part of town, let's visit another remarkable building, the New York Public Library. The library is a huge palace, also in the Beaux-Arts style, built in 1911. It houses a collection of several million volumes. Despite its name, the New York Public Library actually depends on donations from the city's financial elite to stay operational. In the 1990s, patrons donated more than $15 million to restore the reading room. Named in their honor, the Rose Main Reading Room is huge. Its 90-meter length is the equivalent of 2 city blocks. This room is undoubtedly one of the true jewels of this great city. And the New York Public Library doesn't only keep books in its collection. Some of its other special acquisitions draw crowds of their own, as is the case with this original Winnie the Pooh bear. The very special toy is one of the legendary institution's 65 million items. Just behind the library building, you'll find Bryant Park, one of the city's most beautiful parks, named for the poet William Cullen Bryant. It's hard to believe that this island of serenity in the very heart of bustling downtown once served as a military camp for Union troops during the Civil War, and was also a popular spot with drug dealers and prostitutes until the early 1990s. Today, peaceful Bryant Park is very popular with out-of-town visitors, especially after a day of navigating the frenzy of New York City streets. Let's leave Manhattan Island to visit nearby, densely populated Brooklyn. Not visiting Brooklyn while in New York is to ignore one of the area's more innovative places, a place where New York is reinventing itself. Bohemians and young professionals have found new haunts just outside of pricey, crowded Manhattan. For their part, tourists are also increasingly attracted to Brooklyn's vibrant local flavor, its more authentic, less commercial atmosphere, and quieter ambiance. In Brooklyn Heights, they also discover beautiful townhouses and brownstones, so typical of the area. Brooklyn Heights Promenade is a pleasant esplanade along the East River. It's reserved exclusively for pedestrians. The area offers a wonderful perspective over two of New York's mythical bridges, the Manhattan Bridge and the Brooklyn Bridge. The bridges are as recognizable as the famous New York skyline. From here, visitors can also enjoy an exceptional view across the river of Lower Manhattan's business district. And the promenade is also one of New York's most romantic places. Canadian tourists exploring the Eastern Shore can also enjoy a couple of restaurants serving some very familiar dishes. Let's visit two New York City restaurants run by transplanted French Canadians. The Mile End, located in Brooklyn, and M. Wells Diner, which is 10 miles or about 16 kilometers away in Queens. The Mile End is in Brooklyn's charming residential Boerum Hill area, home to a wide variety of interesting eateries and shops. The Mile End moniker refers to the Montreal neighborhood of the same name. The establishment's owner, Noah Bernamoff, opened his restaurant in 2010 with the mission of sharing some of his favorite Montreal dishes with New Yorkers. Thus was born local smoked meat prepared according to the strict rules of Montreal's Schwartz's Deli. In the whole of New York, we're told you won't find a better sandwich. The restaurant's owner even dares challenge the reputation of New York bagels by importing his own Canadian bagels daily from St. Viator Bakery in Montreal. The menu at Mile End evokes Jewish Montreal of the last century. However, there is one notable exception that isn't part of the Hebrew tradition. Mile End's irresistible poutine is another Montreal favorite, also in high demand. Thanks to Mile End, New Yorkers can now experience this concoction of French fries, cheese curds, and gravy, a culinary delight that originated in Quebec. Another New York restaurant opened by Canadians is the M. Wells Diner. It was in this former 50s-style diner that Hugues Dufour decided to conquer the Big Apple. Opened in 2010, M. Wells Diner has a young and friendly staff. The owner of M. Wells has plenty of experience. He was head chef at Montreal's famous Au Pied de Cochon restaurant. The special Quebec flavors of Hugues' cuisine are extremely popular with his New York customers. Customers come to sample Quebec specialties like fresh pâté, meat pie, and sugar pie. New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg has even placed a special order for pork and mushroom pie for a private function. This Quebec-flavored restaurant is a hit. In fact, the New York Times recently included M. Wells on its list of 10 restaurants in the world worth the trip by plane to eat at. Bon appétit! There are several ways for us to head back onto the island of Manhattan: river shuttles, taxis, or the subway. But taking the pedestrian walkway across the Brooklyn Bridge is our best pick. Admiring Manhattan's lights from the Brooklyn Bridge is another New York classic. Completed in 1883, after 15 years of work, the Brooklyn Bridge was considered at the time the 8th wonder of the world. It takes around 30 minutes to cross the Brooklyn Bridge on foot. Walking in the fresh air across this massive steel structure is a real delight. Pedestrians use a wide elevated walkway reserved for them, which overlooks passing vehicles. The glittering Manhattan Bridge is also quite splendid. Inaugurated in 1909, it was built to ease excessive traffic along the Brooklyn Bridge. This is the perfect place for a photo op. At 90 meters or 295 feet high, the bridge's main supports are extraordinarily strong and seem to carry the whole city's history along with being a special part of it. Crossing back to Manhattan on the Brooklyn Bridge Walkway is high up on our list of New York bests. The urban landscape of Manhattan defies description. The island has been in many ways a sort of playground for architects. But there is one part of the city where there's no concrete, steel, or glass. Let's enjoy a walk in Central Park, an exceptional stretch of unspoiled land in the middle of downtown that occupies 6% of Manhattan. Central Park is the main green space and lungs of Manhattan. There are no fewer than 24,000 trees here. On hot summer days, as residents swelter in the streets of the bustling, crowded city, this green shaded area is a welcome retreat. The best way to quickly explore this vast 340-hectare park is to rent a bike. In 1856, the city fathers of New York decided to preserve this great rectangle of land in order to maintain an urban green space. They later called in two architects to develop Central Park, Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vaux. To the north of the park is a body of water called the Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis Reservoir. The pond was dug in 1862. It's bordered by a path that's very popular with New York joggers. Visitors to the park can also visit the animals in the Central Park Zoo. Meeting a polar bear in the very heart of New York City is not unimaginable here. A stroll through surprising Central Park has to be included on any list of New York bests. Let's now head up to the north end of the island to explore the most famous African-American neighborhood in the United States, Harlem. Harlem is first and foremost a neighborhood of small businesses. During the Roaring '20s, Harlem became the center of African-American culture. Whites from across town crowded into Harlem's clubs and theaters to hear the hot new jazz. On Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, Harlem's main thoroughfare, we find the famous Apollo Theater, where some of the biggest names in jazz got their start. Names such as Count Basie, Ella Fitzgerald, and Duke Ellington. Further south is the famous Amy Ruth's Restaurant, another neighborhood institution popular with, among others, such patrons as Spike Lee, Danny Glover, George W. Bush, and Bill Clinton. Amy Ruth's is a temple of soul food. Families in Harlem often reserve several days in advance for its Sunday brunches. On the menu are typical Southern dishes like crispy fried chicken mac and cheese and collard greens. Diners at Amy Ruth's can enjoy a tasty slice of African-American culture. Save some room for dessert. We have more of New York's best being served up next. Let's make a small detour to the Flatiron District so we can admire one of Manhattan's most distinctive skyscrapers. Between Lower and Midtown Manhattan is the Flatiron District, named after its most famous building, the Flatiron Building. Formerly known as the Fuller Building, it was renamed because of its unique triangular shape, reminiscent of an iron. Its unusual, dramatic look, so popular with photographers, was designed by architect Daniel H. Burnham in 1902. Not far from here is the Italy Market. Opened in 2010, this new jewel in New York chef Mario Batali's culinary crown has been drawing crowds since opening day. In this large market dedicated to Italian cuisine, tourists and locals will find a wide variety of fresh and imported produce. Italy also has several restaurants, including Le Verdure, with superb vegetarian cuisine that is very popular with professionals working in the Flatiron District. New York is a city that fills all the senses, and the Italy Market is a feast for the taste buds. Although New York offers an incredible variety of restaurants, having a picnic can be fun too. Let's head over to the Chelsea Market to pick up what we'll need for our picnic in the new High Line Park, a spectacular aerial park. The former warehouse of the Nabisco Company now houses the sprawling Chelsea Market. This is where the famous Oreo cookies were designed back in 1912. The Chelsea Market is the perfect place to blend in with local New Yorkers who come here to do their everyday shopping. Picnickers will easily fill up their basket, as the market offers everything from fish shops to bakeries and delicatessens. And just a few minutes walk from here is the ideal place for us to sit and eat in the sunshine. High Line Park is the largest aerial park in New York. This former railway station, converted into an oasis of greenery almost 10 meters or 30 feet above ground, was opened in the summer of 2009. The last train passed through here in 1980. So, almost 30 years later, visionaries had the wonderful idea of transforming the steel structure into a green park that now extends almost 2.3 kilometers or 1.5 miles. 2 additional sections are planned, extending the park even further. Walking in High Line Park is a unique experience that also offers an excellent view of the Hudson River. Among the beautiful plants and wildflowers, remains of its former life in the train business are still visible, such as the hooks once used to hang sides of beef before transport. A relaxed picnic in New York's Highline Park while enjoying this innovative and urban renewal project is another New York City best. Another Manhattan neighborhood is well known for its creative and community-oriented residents. Let's head over to Greenwich Village, Manhattan's bohemian sector. In 1850, writers, painters, and sculptors were among the first to settle in Greenwich Village. Even today, the soul of the neighborhood remains, above all, the arts. Anyone passing through Greenwich Village should make a point of stopping at Sweet Revenge. The unique characteristic of this wine bar is what they serve along with the drinks. Cupcakes are the house specialty and are well known throughout Manhattan. The origin of the cupcake dates back to 1796, yet the pastry chefs at Sweet Revenge have added a whole new chapter to the story, with gourmet cupcakes to die for. The combination may sound strange, but when it works to perfection, why question it? Once satiated, visitors can enjoy themselves just strolling through the legendary neighborhood. Greenwich Village is a down-to-earth neighborhood on a human scale. One can easily blend in with the locals. Washington Square Park is an important landmark in this area. The Memorial Arch, erected in 1889, commemorates the centennial of George Washington's inauguration. Strolling through Washington Square Park on a beautiful afternoon allows us to reflect back on our visit to New York's bests. And we'll be visiting another city soon and preparing another list of all the best things to do and see.